What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down the economic calendar, break down what's happening for tomorrow moving forward, and what I see happening to NIO as we have some new headlines coming out. But before I begin devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Weeble and deposit $500, you guarantee 20 free stocks. If you deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 of them, and the offer ends very soon, just a couple of days. Anyways, for NIO, as you guys can see, this thing had a nice double top like formation, and we are kind of rejecting right here, forming a bearish structure. But the only issue is if we could try to hold this support or not. I mean, if we break this, I do see potential for us to dip all the way down to fill this gap. And I do see that the overall market could have an effect on NIO, at least to some extent. So I'm going to break down more information about what's happening with the markets for the week, then talk about NIO as well. So what's going on with the markets? How could this affect NIO? Well, the answer is, firstly, on Monday, we just have a couple of bill auctions at 11:30 a.m. It's all very, very minor data. For Tuesday, we just have more bill auctions, the 42-day bill auction, the 52-week bill auction, and a few more at 11:30 a.m. Then on Wednesday, we also have the inflationary reports coming out. 1 hour before the market opens, we have core CPI coming out month over month and year over year. Not to mention CPI for all items, which is going to be very pivotal for the way we end up moving. And then, all this data comes out on Wednesday. But then later on Wednesday at 2 o'clock p.m., we have the FOMC rate hike decision coming out. So this is going to be very key. Currently, there's about a 99% chance the Fed's going to keep rates the same. And I think that's most likely going to be the case unless we get some crazy CPI numbers. Or if anything else changes, but I favor they're just going to keep rates the same most likely. I don't think they're ready to do much. That's the most likely possibility. And then after all of that, at 2:30 p.m., the real move comes once we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. And we know this guy can shake the markets like crazy, so we'll see what he has to say. That's going to be key for what happens on Wednesday. Thursday, we have PPI, and that's pretty much it for the week. But the data is going to be pretty crazy starting on Wednesday. That's going to be very, very insane for how things end up moving. Now, for Monday, we have Skillsoft and a few others announcing earnings. For Tuesday, we have Oracle and a few more. And we have a couple of them like Dave & Buster's. Very, very minor earnings, at least for the calendar. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, you could. Just real quick, this is what the earnings calendar looks like, at least for the week. And then, excuse me, as far as NIO goes, NIO has announced that they're basically joining a collaboration with GAC Energy. That's actually going to be very, very useful for them. And it's going to be very useful for developing their charging networks and improving them moving forward. They're going to be, once again, sharing their facilities, which offers a lot more resources for their customers. And the charging services will make it much easier for them to search and use broader ranges of coverage. So that's going to be very important for them moving forward. And I think that that's going to be key. On top of this, NIO also has its first quarter 2024 earnings. They missed expectations. That's why NIO is actually dipping a bit. But what is good is the fact that their guidance is very strong for deliveries, at least for Q2. And I think there's going to be a lot of improvements in their margins, at least for that point. So in my personal opinion, for the short term, this is a bearish catalyst, but for the medium term, it's a bullish catalyst because of the fact that NIO is going to have some very strong numbers and hopefully better looking sales, revenue, and other margin projections. For volume, we have about 35 million in volume. It's actually below average. And on top of this, we also have the short volume kind of dipping a little bit. So we're seeing a little bit less shorting than before. And then we have Bank of America Securities giving a neutral rating. Coming down here, I just wanted to mention that the price-price ratio is also dipping a little bit towards this lower level because NIO is losing some strength relative to the markets. And we also have a tendency of seeing green only about 49% of the time on Mondays, so nothing too crazy in my personal opinion. So we'll see what ends up happening to NIO. As far as the share price goes, now I just want to focus on this. Right now, things are looking a bit more bearish. We're looking like we're going to likely test about this 4.7 area. If we lose this, I think that the share price could dip quite a bit, all the way down to about 4.5. And then our next target is going to be this gap fill down at about 4.13. And there's a very high probability we're actually going to see a little bit more downside. Looking at this structure, we also have a bearish structure as we had this high right here at 6.03. We came down to the lower high, and we're just continuing to downtrend right here, losing our key EMAs after the earnings reports. Now, for bullish, you want to see it try to bounce off 4.7, try to get back above 5.11. As long as we're below our 50 EMA in the daily, I do favor downside a little bit more. So I think there's a very, very good chance this might actually dip lower and come down to fill the gap. So that's looking a bit more probable to me. So we'll just have to see how things end up developing from here. But just know that the chart, looks a little bit more bearish. For SPY, we're indecisive right now. We're actually at 534. Even during the after hours, we're kind of stuck right there. We're kind of stuck right now. So in my personal opinion, this is how I see SPY. We have the breakout area right here. This is that 533 area. If we're above that, we do favor bulls a bit more. If we do lose that, we could actually dip a little bit lower. And looking at this rejection we got, I think there's a risk that we're going to be testing 533 tomorrow. If we lose this, we could be coming down to fill this gap, get very close to 529 before we try to bounce back up again. Or if we hold above this, we could be continuing to shuffle around the all-time high. So I think we're going to either shuffle between 536 and 533, or if we lose 533, it might be a little dip before we try to bounce back up. Those are the two possibilities I'm seeing, but there is a risk of a little downside before we try to bounce. I find that to be very probable. For Bitcoin, I would say that, let me just double check this. This, in my personal opinion, is actually trying to hold above its 20 EMA. I think that this is holding up relatively well in the daily time frame. If we do hold this, I could be looking for a rebound up here towards 71,000. Might be a little pop on Bitcoin before we end up coming back down. So look for that as the most likely possibility. As far as Tesla goes, in my personal opinion, the chart is bullish on the daily. Also on the 4-hour time frame, we're looking a bit more bullish to me. But for the super short term, it might be a little dip coming because Tesla did announce that their Model Y refresh is not going to be coming for the year. So we might get a little dip before it tries to actually consolidate a bit longer before we see a big move to the upside. If we break and hold above 180 or close above that, I favor upside. I think this thing is going to be pushing very nicely. If we fail to do so, there could be a dip. But right now, as we did dip, we saw Tesla try to rebound. So there's a good chance it might try to bounce and break out. There might be an initial dip that comes a little dip first before it tries to push higher. That's the most likely possibility. Could get a dip because of the Model Y news that Elon Musk announced, but then I still think there's potential for this to continue to push. For the QQQ, this, in my personal opinion, is looking a little weaker on the 4-hour, especially because we dipped a bit lower during the after hours. So we're actually in the mid 462 area. I would say that right here we have this resistance around 460. There's a very good chance we might test that before we try to bounce, but I do see a little downside as a strong possibility for the QQQ. Just a bit, a retest of 460, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. So I see that as a very, very strong probability, and I do want you guys to be aware of that for tomorrow. For Apple, we're looking a bit more bullish, especially with all the meetings coming up. This looks bullish to me. As long as we try to break above this high, I do think we could be testing 198 very soon and get very close to the all-time high. So I think Apple may try to push up a bit higher. It might try to push as long as we hold above this resistance. 198 is a potential target. And then we'll see how things go from there. So watch for that very carefully. Besides that, for the memes out there, GameStop and AMC, if we lose, so GameStop is right here at the support. There's a very good chance it might fill this gap. If we lose 23, we turn a lot more bearish. If we continue to, hold support, we're going to likely fill our gap. GameStop looks bearish to me, and a very good chance it's going to continue to fall. Same thing with AMC. I mean, we're actually, technically speaking, we are just at our 50 EMA. If we lose 4.88, I'll be looking for a dip all the way down towards 4.58, and then eventually the 4.33 gap fill. So I find those to be very probable. So I'll be watching to see how things end up moving going forward, but we'll see what ends up happening. With that being said, guys, I do see potential downside coming, at least on the charts. Just temporarily before we do see an attempt to bounce afterwards. So keep this in the back of your mind, heed this warning, and just be prepared for what's about to come. All right, so for NIO, like I said before, it's going to be a test of 4.7 coming. Lose that, I think this thing is going to be tipping even lower. Let me just show you the chart real quick. The 4-hour also looks more bearish to me. Let me just zoom out. Look a little bit more bearish. It looks like we have like an inverse cup and handle. So looks a bit more bearish. We have this gap to fill down here, so there's a good chance this is going to see a little bit more downside, especially after that earnings. But don't forget the medium term is still bullish, looking at their deliveries projections and such. All right, so thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and peace out.